Hey everyone, it is Drew Elliott here with the Millennial Effect, Episode 1. So this episode is titled Why Most Advice Sucks and My Promise to You. When it comes to the topic of advice, I really think this applies to everybody. I created this channel really to focus on speaking to entrepreneurs and business people. But on this particular topic, I want to speak to everyone because I think it's so important. And if you're serious about this information, I think you could get some value out of it. We live in an age right now where there's so many different channels that we get information from. And on each channel, there's an overload of information, right? Whether on your Facebook, your email, YouTube, talking to friends, parents, driving down the road and billboards and signs. There's so many people that are trying to influence us and tell us how to live our lives, how we should control our finances, our relationships, our health. And I think it's important to step back sometimes and realize that everyone is their own individual, right? What's extremely important to me might not be important to you because we all have different goals. We all have different aspirations, different dreams. So I think it's important that when you're listening and taking in information, advice, that you be open-minded, but you don't always accept everything just blindly. Even the things that I'm going to tell you from this point into the future, I never want you to just take the things that I tell you. I want you to be able to do your own homework, think critically about that information, and use it in a way that makes sense to you and what you want to achieve. With that being said, though, I do find most of the advice that I do get across many, many different channels, whether it's from my friends, from influencers, YouTube. I think a lot of advice suffers from what I would call maybe being too theoretical. There's a lot of advice that I find lives in this higher level idea, this theory, right? And I'll give you a perfect example. Right now, you've probably heard, as you were growing up, you need to get good grades, go to a good college, get a good education, get a good job, buy a house, save your money, invest, and retire. I'm almost there. Retire happy. Right? This is like the modern blueprint of how people are told to live their lives. Good grades, job, house, save, invest, retire. And it sounds great, right? It seems to make sense, like it's figured out. Here's the thing. This kind of advice, which is all over the place. You see it in, this higher level, do this and you'll succeed. It suffers from not being practical. And what I mean is, what's a good college to you? If my parents told me you need to go to a good college, what's good college to them might not be a good college to me and what I want to do. And the same with what's a good job? What's a good house for you and your family? How should you save your money? What's a good investment? What does it mean to retire happy? Some business people, they want to work the rest of their lives because they love what they do. And some people can't wait for the day that they can take their 401k out. So again, I think it's important to step back when it comes to advice and realize that you need to take information in and translate it in a way that makes sense for you. But that being said, stepping away from theory, you need to start looking more into the practical, right? This is what I would call maybe your long-term strategy, right? But you need to start thinking about what are you doing on a day-to-day? Because people, this sounds great, but you get lost, right? If you don't have practical steps that you can take now to do stuff, it's hard. It's hard to implement. And I know this. I've taken a lot of courses. I've listened to a lot of mentors and taken so much advice, and sometimes if you take it in for too much information for the sake of just having it, you complicate your life in ways that it's hard for you to think clearly. It's hard for you to go in a direction that truly is in line with what you want to do. So I want you to start thinking now, when you hear advice, whether it's from reading books, watching videos, courses, this is what you need to ask yourself. What are 1 to 2? I wouldn't really do more than that, because then you start complicating things. But what are 1 to 2 practical takeaways that I can use right now? This is about execution. And this side's about an idea. Look, everyone's got ideas. But it doesn't matter how good your idea is if you don't execute on them. All right? So, that being said, my advice to you and my promise to you is that always think about whatever you hear from a practical standpoint, because chances are, if you can't practically take something away from it, it's probably not worth it to you, right? It's going to sit there on the shelf, but not do anything. And that's not what, it's like hoarding, but with information. And that's not what you want to do. You want to be able to stay live, stay, energetic, have mobility in what you're doing. And that's where you're going to be living on the practical side. So my promise to you is, every time I do a video, I will always have one practical takeaway at the end of it. Always. It's important to me. And I really think if you're serious about it, it's going to provide you with value. So, any questions, feel free to let me know. Hope you enjoyed.